Entry 1, October 3rd, 2024. My name is Dr. Sarah Chun, and I'm a paranormal investigator with a background in historical research. I've been called to Coalmont, West Virginia, to investigate what locals are calling the Hollow Children. 3 separate families have reported encounters with pale children with completely black eyes appearing at their doors after dark, requesting entry in monotone voices. The sheriff, a skeptical man named Hayes, thinks it's elaborate pranks, but the consistency of the reports troubles me. Each family describes the same details. Children aged 8 to 12 dress in old-fashioned clothing with eyes like black holes. They speak in unison, asking to come inside or to go home. I'm staying at the Coalmont Inn, the only lodging in this dying town of 847 residents. The clerk, an elderly woman named Mrs. Hartwell, grew visibly pale when I mentioned why I was here. "You shouldn't go poking around old graves," she whispered. "Some things are better left buried." Entry 2, October 4th, 2024. First day of interviews. Spoke with the Morrison family, who had an encounter 2 weeks ago. Jim Morrison, a coal mine supervisor, described waking to knocking at 2:17 a.m. Through the peephole, he saw 3 children standing on his porch. They looked like something from an old photograph, his wife Linda told me. Their clothes were clean but wrong, like costumes from a museum. And those eyes, she shuddered, not just black pupils. The entire eye, from corner to corner, like looking into empty space. Their 10-year-old daughter Emma listened from the stairs, and later told her parents the children had said they were looking for the train. When the family refused to open the door, the children simply stood there until dawn, never moving, never blinking. I asked about local history. The Morrisons knew little beyond the coal mining heritage, but Linda mentioned an old railway depot on the edge of town that's been abandoned since the 1950s. Entry 3, October 5th, 2024. Visited the Coalmont Historical Society, housed in a converted church basement. The volunteer curator, Agnes Petrie, is a treasure trove of local knowledge. When I described the children's old-fashioned clothing, her face went ashen. Lord help us," she whispered. "You're describing the photographs." She led me to a display case I'd overlooked, a collection of sepia photographs from 1889, showing a group of children at the old railway depot. The image quality was poor, but the clothing matched the witnesses' descriptions perfectly. Woolen coats with brass buttons, knickers, and high-collared shirts. Agnes explained these were orphan-trained children, part of a program that relocated homeless children from eastern cities to rural families. Between 1854 and 1929, over 250,000 children were transported west on what were called orphan trains. Coalmont was a stop in 1889, Agnes said. 43 children arrived, but she hesitated. Only 37 were placed with families. What happened to the other 6? Nobody knows. The records just end. Entry 4, October 6, 2024. Spent the day at the West Virginia State Archives in Charleston, researching the 1889 orphan train. Found shipping manifests and placement records. But Agnes was right. 6 children simply disappeared from the documentation after arrival in Coalmont. Their names were Timothy Walsh, age 9, Margaret O'Brien, age 11, Samuel Wright, age 8, Catherine Murphy, age 10, Michael Fitzgerald, age 12, Elizabeth Cole, age 9. The final entry, dated November 15, 1889, was written by a Children's Aid Society representative named Jonathan Blackwood. Remaining children relocated to alternative arrangements. Case closed. But there's no record of where these alternative arrangements were, and Blackwood's own records end abruptly after this assignment. I also found something disturbing in the county death records, a notation about a mining accident on November 16, 1889, one day after Blackwood's final entry. 7 fatalities, all unidentified. The bodies were buried in an unmarked section of Coalmont Cemetery. 7 bodies, 6 missing children plus 1 adult. Entry 5, October 7, 2024. met with Harold Kemper, 89, the oldest resident in Coalmont. His grandfather, Otto Kemper, was the depot master in 1889 and witnessed the orphan train's arrival. Grandpa Otto told stories. Harold said, rocking on his porch, said those last 6 children were different. Quiet, too quiet, the families who came to choose children. They just couldn't bring themselves to take those particular ones. Harold's eyes grew distant. Grandpa said they had sad eyes, empty eyes, like they'd seen too much of the world's cruelty already. According to family lore, the children were housed temporarily in the mine company's old bunkhouse while arrangements were made. The company supervisor, a man named Blackwood, promised to find them homes. But then came the accident, Harold continued. Cave-in at the old number 7 shaft. They said it was methane gas, but Grandpa Otto knew better. He said Blackwood took those children down into that mine, and whatever happened down there, Harold shook his head. Well, the dead don't rest easy when they've been wronged. Entry 6, October 8, 2024. Explore the abandoned number 7 mine shaft with local guide Tommy Vance, who knows the tunnels from his mining days. The entrance was sealed decades ago, but we found an alternate way in through a natural cave system that connects to the original tunnels. 300 yards underground, we discovered a collapsed section that matches the historical records of the 1889 accident. But behind the rockfall, Tommy's flashlight illuminated something that made my blood freeze. Small skeletal remains arranged in a circle, still wearing scraps of 19th century clothing. In the center of the circle was a larger skeleton, and beside it, a leather satchel that somehow survived the moisture and decay. Inside, I found a journal belonging to Jonathan Blackwood. The entries detail his true purpose in Coalmont, not as a Children's Aid Society representative, but as an agent for a mining company seeking to test new extraction methods using child labor. The 6 unreplaceable children were to be used as test subjects for dangerous mining techniques in unmarked tunnels. Blackwood's final entry, dated November 15, 1889, was barely legible but chilling. The children refuse to work. They stand together, staring with those dark eyes, saying nothing. They know. God help me. They know what I've done. The walls are starting to shift. Something is wrong with this place. The children's eyes, they're not reflecting light anymore. They're like holes in the world. Entry 7, October 9th, 2024. Could barely sleep after yesterday's discovery. The images of those small bones arranged in their eternal circle haunt me. But it's the implication that disturbs me most. Those children didn't die in an accident. They were murdered, sacrificed to corporate greed and adult indifference. I reported the find to Sheriff Hayes, who contacted the state authorities. A proper forensic team will investigate, but given the age of the remains, it's largely a historical matter now. What isn't historical are the new reports coming in. 3 more families have had encounters with the black-eyed children in the past 2 days. The pattern is escalating. Mrs. Hartwell at the inn pulled me aside this morning. You stirred them up, she accused. They've been quiet for years, only showing themselves every decade or so. But you went down into their resting place, and now they're angry. I tried to explain that I was seeking justice for them, but she shook her head. Justice? Child, those babies have been dead for 135 years. What they want now isn't justice. It's completion. Entry 8, October 10th, 2024. The encounters are becoming more frequent and more intense. Last night, the black-eyed children appeared simultaneously at 7 different homes across Coalmont. They no longer just stand silently. They're speaking. Jennifer Walsh, no relation to Timothy Walsh from 1889, recorded part of their message on her phone. We want to go home. We want to go home. The train is coming. All aboard. All aboard. The recording is unsettling because all the children speak in perfect unison. Their voices layer in a way that shouldn't be possible. But more disturbing is what happens at the end of the recording. You can hear a distant train whistle, though no railway has operated through Coalmont since 1952. I've been researching the metaphysical implications of traumatic death and unfinished business. These children died far from home, betrayed by the very system meant to protect them, were spent in terror, deep underground, abandoned by the world above. Perhaps what witnesses are seeing isn't supernatural in the traditional sense, but something closer to psychic residue, the emotional imprint of profound injustice, manifesting as a desperate desire to complete their interrupted journey. Entry 9, October 11th, 2024. Had my own encounter last night. I was reviewing my notes around midnight when I heard the knocking. Slow, deliberate, patient. Through the inn's window, I saw them. 6 children standing in the pale moonlight, dressed in the clothing I'd seen in Agnes's photographs. Their eyes were exactly as described. Not merely black pupils, but entirely black orbs that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. When they looked at me, I felt a profound sadness, like staring into an abyss of abandonment. But unlike the other witnesses, I didn't feel fear. I felt recognition. Timothy? Margaret? Samuel? I called their names through the glass. Catherine, Michael, Elizabeth? At the sound of their names, names unspoken for over a century, they tilted their heads in unison. One of them, a girl who must be Elizabeth Cole, stepped forward and pressed her palm against the window. "We want to go home," she said, her voice like wind through empty spaces. "Help us go home." I understood then what they needed, not to enter houses, not to frighten families, but to complete the journey that was stolen from them in 1889. Entry 10, October 12th, 2024. Spent the day researching the original orphan train destinations and tracking down what happened to the 37 children who were successfully placed. Most lived full lives, had families, died of natural causes decades ago. But I also discovered something else. The original plan for the 6 unreplaceable children was an abandonment in Coalmont. According to a letter I found in the state archives, they were meant to continue west to Oregon, where a farmer named Edmund Cole, possibly related to Elizabeth, had agreed to take them all. They never made it to their true destination. Their journey was interrupted by Jonathan Blackwood's greed and the mining company's callous disregard for human life. I've made a decision that my academic colleagues will consider professionally unsound, but which feels morally necessary. Tonight, I'm going to the old railway depot. I'm going to help 6 children finish a journey that began 135 years ago. Entry 11, October 13th, 2024. Last night, I walked to the abandoned depot at exactly 11:47 p.m., the time the orphan train was originally scheduled to arrive in Coalmont on November 15, 1889. The children were waiting. They stood on the overgrown platform where rails once carried hope westward, their black eyes reflecting the starlight like dark mirrors. In the distance, I could hear it, the sound of an approaching train, though no tracks remained. "The train is coming," Elizabeth Cole said, her voice now warm instead of hollow. "Thank you for remembering our names." As the phantom whistle grew louder, the children began to change. The terrible emptiness in their eyes filled with something like peace. Their old-fashioned clothes brightened, becoming less like museum pieces and more like the travel clothes of excited children starting an adventure. One by one, they smiled, the first smiles they'd worn since 1889. The spectral train materialized on tracks that existed only in memory and need, its windows glowing with warm yellow light. The 6 children of Coalmont climbed aboard, turned to wave goodbye before the train began its journey west, carrying them finally to their intended destination. As the phantom locomotive disappeared into the night, taking its cargo of rescued souls toward Oregon in peace, I heard something remarkable. The sound of children laughing, joyful and free. Entry 12, October 15th, 2024. No new encounters have been reported since October 12th. The black-eyed children of Coalmont have gone home at last. I'm prepared to leave town. But before I go, I've arranged for a memorial to be placed at the old depot. It will bear the names of Timothy Walsh, Margaret O'Brien, Samuel Wright, Catherine Murphy, Michael Fitzgerald, and Elizabeth Cole, along with the inscription, "Travelers on an interrupted journey, finally arrived." Agnes Petrie from the Historical Society has agreed to maintain the memorial and share the true story of what happened in 1889. The children deserve to be remembered not as frightening apparitions, but as victims of adult cruelty who found their way to peace through simple acts of recognition and remembrance. Sometimes, the work of a paranormal investigator isn't to banish the supernatural, but to understand why it exists and help it find resolution. Sometimes, all a ghost needs is for someone to remember their name and help them complete their journey home. Case closed. What you just seen was inspired by real events whispered about in the dark. But this tale has been twisted, dramatized, and brought to life for entertainment. In truth, the shadows hold their own secrets.